Welcome to Happily Ever After is just the beginning. Keeping your relationship not just together, but happy, and we mean truly happy, is part art and part science. You've come to the right place. Here's your host, Leslie Dories.
You know, I hear a lot of things from couples that really hurt my heart and oftentimes just make me want to cry. There are things that I hear that also make me want to scream inside and make me want to jump up and down and just, shake my fists. But there's one thing that I hear that actually gives me both responses. So have you ever heard, or worse, maybe said, I love my partner, I'm just not in love with them anymore? Arg! It's often seen as an inevitable fact of being married for any length of time, and it's also a statement of settling for a less than marriage. So what it really is an acknowledgement that intimacy has faded. And as somebody who just celebrated their 31st wedding anniversary, I can tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. And to help me explain that to you and help you find a way back to each other, I'm joined by Jeff Forte. He's an executive and peak performance coach. He's the founder of Peak Results Coaching, and more importantly, at least for me, he's the author of The 90-Minute Marriage Miracle. And so we're going to talk today about the importance of intimacy in marriage and how you can revive it in yours. So, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this really important topic.
Leslie, it's great to be with you, and I really, really appreciate your enthusiasm. And congrats, 31 years, that's awesome.
Yeah, so far he hasn't thrown me out yet, so, or me him. And I do think that there's a lot of people who think, there's the joke about, marriage is the place where sex goes to die, which is, that's not true. I mean, and you probably know this, that the research shows that married couples not only have more sex, but they also have better sex. But I know when we're talking about intimacy, we're not just talking about sex and the physical part of intimacy. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on the show is because you wrote a recent article called 8 Elements of Intimacy and What You Need to Do to Get It Back. And in the article you wrote, and I love this, I love what you said, intimacy is the actualized aliveness of love in the relationship. It demonstrates deep caring. Without it, partners will feel empty and neglected. It's like this resonated with me so much. So can you elaborate a little bit on how you came to this, what this actually means?
Yes. I want your audience to know that I come to the relationship world from a different perspective, and the reason I do the work that I do is because I had a failed marriage 24 years ago. My first marriage lasted 5 years, and I really was pretty clueless looking in hindsight about it. My dad left when I was 15 years old, so I didn't have a great role model for the male figure in a relationship, and in my experience, most of us really don't. We don't tend to see high levels of intimacy, high levels of joy in our parents or role models. And so if we don't see it, how are we going to figure it out? So my wife and I now have been together 18 years, a second marriage, and I had this thought, what's possible between two people? What's really possible if one person is absolutely committed, the other person is committed at whatever level, but committed? What's possible? And the only answer that I've been able to come up with so far is that there seems to be no end to the elevation and improvement of affection, closeness, the deep feelings of being understood and getting each other. So
right,
intimacy,
which is why a lot of us get married in the first place, is because we have that, we're experiencing that in the moment, which is yay, and we want it to continue, or that's what we're looking for. Yes.
And what I didn't realize in the failure of my first marriage was the result of me thinking, okay, I'm married now, I'm good. I don't have to do anything. We're
I
good.
can slide, right.
We're going to live happily ever
right.
after.
We're going to live happily ever after, right. And then
I don't
what?
have to do anything special where you take each other for granted. There's this thing I call benign neglect where we don't intend to neglect our partner. We just do. Something else becomes more important. And that's the pretty typical pattern.
I call it the squeaky wheel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a typical pattern that we see. And so for me, what I realized trying to figure out my own marriage issues early on with my wife was that if I didn't feel connected with her, what was I doing in the relationship? To me, this connection is an aspect of intimacy, this feelings of closeness. Mm-hmm. And so if you're walking on eggshells around your partner or you don't feel comfortable to be yourself around them, why are you in the relationship?
Good question.
So the actualized aliveness for me in the relationship is the feeling, right? The feeling of chemistry, the feeling of deep connection, the feeling of closeness, togetherness, the desire to be in each other's presence, to touch each other in any number of ways, not just sexually, but just to these affectionate, a back rub to a hug. And everybody out there knows the difference between being held and being hugged, right? That lingering touch creates another element of improvement in the physical connection.
Right, and the physical connection leads to deeper emotional, intellectual connection too. To me, that's intimacy is more than just people talk about intimacy. Oh, you're talking about sex. No, sex is part of it.
Right.
But it's so much bigger than that. And so you have 8 elements.
Yes.
And so let's just start with the first couple.
Sure.
So what are these 8 elements and why and why?
Well, the first element is affection and physical touch. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to me that's a really important element because if there isn't any affection, if there isn't any physical touch in the relationship, I may have a great friendship, but there's absolutely nothing special. And in fact, in any of these 8 elements, if they're missing, the relationship becomes more roommates. And in my opinion, that's not my goal. That's not what I want, and that's not what I want for people. I don't want anybody out there who's in an intimate, long-term relationship to feel like they're just roommates with their partner, and that exists too often today. So affection and physical touch are important. Mm-hmm. And the second one is the feelings of closeness, the feelings of connection and togetherness. You want to feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, that this person that you're with brings some additional dynamic into your life that you're never going to get on your own. And so those are the beginnings of what to me appears to be the important elements of intimacy that create this special uniqueness between two people.
Well, and I really like the focus on the second one because, my husband and I actually really like being with each other. We really enjoy it. We enjoy each other's company, and we'll do things with each other that if we were by ourselves, we might not do, but because my husband's interested in this, I go along. Because I'm interested in this, he goes along. And then we've learned, sure, I enjoy this. Left on my own, I never would have done this. And that's part of that wanting to be together, and then the shared experience, of course, is a huge part of keeping relationships together.
I'm reminded of this feelings of closeness, connection, and togetherness. A lot of couples don't really enjoy spending time with each other. And my wife and I love to spend time with each other. We spend a great deal of time together. In fact, I prefer to go out to dinner with her alone than I do with other couples. And this is a kind of a fascinating thing that I observe is that often couples cannot go someplace by themselves.
Yeah, I frequently, because my husband and I do that too. We'll go out to dinner, and I'm looking at other couples in the restaurant, and I want to be throwing my cards on the table. It's like, okay, it doesn't have to be this way. The awkward silences, and Oh, gosh, what's the movie with Steve Carell and Julianne Moore?
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. But
where they're having dinner and their weekly dinner, and it's she wants a divorce, and
right.
It's like Okay, so what's number 3? What's the third one?
So warmth and tenderness towards each other. So when we exude warmth, genuine feelings of compassion, feelings of this radiant happiness around each other, being tender towards each other, right? So if to recognize in each other whatever is going on in that particular moment. Perhaps there's stress, perhaps there's pain, perhaps there's something going on in each other that we're not even aware of. Usually couples who've been together for any even reasonable period of time can tell in an instant the mood of their partner just by observing them, or even a phone call, the first hello. Right? Usually you can tell what's going on. Right? Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly right. However, when life has really become more hectic than ever with technology, and so often people re-engage with each other in a distracted state.
Yep.
So there is no feeling of warmth or tenderness towards each other. We're not focused on our partner. We're focused in our own thoughts, or we're focused and distracted by some technology.
Right, because, I have both of my children, they're actually now adults. They've grown up in this, technological age, and the whole, fear of missing out. If they're not connected on Facebook or Instagram or whatever they happen to be, they're going to miss out. And it's like, yeah, but you're missing out what's going on right in front of you. And I think that's really happening a lot with couples.
It is. In fact, I urge couples not to text each other at all, other than, little insignificant things like pick me up some eggs at the store, what time we're going to get our children, and, I'll be home at 9:30.
Right, yeah,
or a little I love you, or a little playful wait till I get home, with some emoji of some sort.
Right.
But other than that, people tend to argue and try to resolve things by text. It's a disaster.
Oh, I know. I tell people it's like, some couples can pull it off, but most couples, because all you have is the words, even if you do emojis, which thank goodness those exist, but even then, arguing through text or trying to resolve an issue through text it's a minefield, because all you have is the words. You don't have facial expression, tone. You can't touch each other. You can't reach out and touch and be supportive or whatever. So what's number 4?
Number 4 is sensuality and sexual activity, which actually should be last, so I want to wait on that.
Okay.
They're not in any. They weren't in any particular order in the article, but then it's deep conversations, feeling understood and valued. And the only way to feel valued, right? We all have kind of our own unique rules. What has to happen in order for me to feel valued? What has to happen in order for me to feel understood? The practical thing that has to happen is somebody's got to be paying close attention to me, right?
Yes, and for a period of time.
Exactly, not for a nanosecond, or as I used to do with my remote when my wife would want to talk to me. I'm watching a game and she wants to talk to me, and I'm turning my head back and forth, and that is absolutely not feeling valued.
Exactly, yeah. So that brings that brings up when couples should make the time, because sometimes it is make the time. We're one of the bywords of today is I'm so busy. Well, if you're too busy to take care of your marriage, you talked about benign neglect, it will end. Nothing thrives on neglect, including love. But this idea of actually being present and paying attention and making time to do that, because I tell people, you need to be spending minimum 15 to 20 minutes a day in conversation, because the first 3 to 5 minutes is simply superficial stuff. But if you're still talking after 20 minutes, now we're connecting. Now we're talking on a deeper level. Now I'm hearing you. I'm present. I'm not trying to watch the baseball game or the football game around your shoulders, or The Bachelor, or whatever it happens to be, because it's not just guys who get stuck on stuff.